Hello, everyone, and welcome to another installment of College Information Week 2026, the benefits of a Jesuit collegiate experience with Ms. Danni Keane. Danni Keane is the Director of National Recruitment for Western New York at John Carroll University and a proud JSU alumna. She earned her bachelor's degree in political science and government from JCU before going on to Bowling Green State University, where she completed a master's degree in college student personnel. Danni began her professional career at the University of Georgia as the senior coordinator of student activities, where she planned and led campus-wide events, advised student organizations, and developed leadership programs while serving as a liaison between students, faculty, and administrators. She later returned to John Carroll as an assistant director of enrollment, then expanded her impact at The Ohio State University as the coordinator of student retention and success. Danni ultimately found her way back home to JCU, where she now serves as the Director of National Recruitment for Western New York. As McQuaid's admissions representative for the past several years, she has consistently brought enthusiasm, professionalism, and expertise to our campus visits at McQuaid while helping students envision their future at John Carroll. She also brings treats for us. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Danni Keane, who will be speaking with us today about the benefits of a Jesuit collegiate experience.
Thank you. I feel the need I want to clap for myself and for you. Thank you for that great
Absolutely.
introduction. Um, I have a coffee here that I might occasionally sip on as we move forward. And off screen, I've got some notes because I'm sure there's something I'm going to forget. And I have some key points that I'd like to highlight as we move through. So thank you very much.
You got it.
Okay, folks. When they first brought this to me and asked for me to share a little bit with you, I was like, where exactly to begin? Because at least for me, every inch of my higher education experience as a student, as an alumna, as a graduate student, as now a professional member of a Jesuit university, it's all been tied to Jesuit education in different ways. Like, I feel like there has never been a part of my education experience that isn't tied to the Jesuit identity. So when I'm asked like why choose a Jesuit education, what are the benefits to it? What's the difference maker? To me, like everything is different. Everything, all roads point to Jesuit education, and so um, I hope to take you along that pathway with me, and I hope to maybe open some ideas or new ways of thinking that you hadn't quite considered, or maybe this is all everything you already know and you're already totally sold on it. In which case, I hope I can't wait to see where that takes you. But I think the easiest place and the place that makes the most sense to begin with is the beginning. So, as you probably know, um, Jesuits have been educating folks for nearly 500 years. And on one hand, that seems like, okay, yeah, and so what? But for me, what that proves is this enduring nature of a Jesuit education that generationally it continues to resonate with new folks. And yes, the traditions are the same, but the Jesuits are continuing to find ways to innovate and meet the needs of a changing world and changing nation. I mean, gosh, think of all the different revolutions that have taken place and different ways of thinking that have adapted over the last 500 years. And through it all, Jesuit education remains at such a forefront of the education and higher education space. So here in the US, there are, as you may know, 27 Jesuit universities across the country. There's obviously John Carroll, where I'm at. But I encourage you to look potentially beyond your geographical areas and keep some minds open to other schools that you might not be familiar with. Of course, there's, the like the ones that everyone knows about. Boston College, Georgetown, those are ones that always come to mind. The four Loyolas are wonderful. You have Regis and Seattle, and why can't I think of the others? I'm not going to list all 27, but I want you to maybe look beyond where you initially thought and keep that in mind because at the heart, the education at all of these places is going to be very similar. There's going to be a lot of different flavors and ways that things are implemented differently, but there's such a vast network of schools that you could be looking at, and I would encourage you to explore some of those options. Um, and I want you to think about, what you know about Jesuit education. There are the things that, you know, are always at the top of mind, the liberal arts education, some of those catchphrases that you might be sprouting off, like the cura personalis, the magist, being men and women for and with others, like those buzzwords. And of course, you are familiar with those, but what might that look like at the collegiate level? So think about your time at McQuaid. Think about how you have changed over your time here, through your experiences here. And maybe that's going from 13, 14-year-old to 16, 17 years old, and what has made a difference for you? How have you been developed or challenged or supported? And now then think, sorry, the blurring effect is distracting me. Um, but now think what it could look like for you going from 18 years old at the start of your college experience to 22 years old at the end of it, or what might be the end of it. For some of you, could be a little bit further along if you're thinking of a professional or a graduate degree. And think about what those 4 years of a continued Jesuit education might mean for you personally and professionally, um, and go from there. Um, there's a huge alumni network that, and I don't know if that's something you always think about when you're making your college choice or considering schools that you're going to. So across all of the universities here, there are 2 million Jesuit alumni, Jesuit educated alumni out there in the world. And you might not be thinking about it like, and it's different when it's involved with the Jesuits. So I have worked for some of the biggest universities in the country. And yeah, there's definitely affinity when you are working with SEC schools or Big Ten schools with other schools within those athletic conferences. But sort of at the foundation of it, there's always still going to be like that rivalry piece to it. But when you encounter other Jesuit educated folks from the other 27 Jesuit universities, it's much more of like this kind of friends and families vibe to it. So, for example, when I left GCU and I went to Bowling Green to begin graduate school, I didn't know a soul. And that was kind of scary. But as we made introductions as a cohort, I noticed that one of the other girls, she had gone to Creighton. And instantly I was like, okay, I need to go introduce myself to her because at the very least, like, I know we have this one thing in common. Like, she and I both went to Jesuit universities. Now we're here at this big public school. I know at the very least, we have something that we can talk about. And yeah, we jokingly like joked around about St. Ignatius and like being Jesuit and sort of those kinds of things. But there was so much that we had in common with each other that sort of eased our way through our graduate experience. And we found a girl a year older than us within our same program who had gone to Boston College and another girl who had gone to Marquette. And it kind of became the small little community within our larger cohorts that we were able to rely on or sort of shoot things off of. And that is not a unique experience to me and Creighton and Marquette and Boston College. That kind of expands your network when you have the 27 Jesuit schools behind you. I mean, and maybe this is just me. I could be the worst person at March Madness out there, but when I'm selecting my bracket, it doesn't matter that I didn't go to Xavier or I didn't go to Creighton or Gonzaga or St. Peter's last year when they were in the tournament. Maybe it was last year. But I'm going to be picking a Jesuit school when it comes to that first round. Maybe I'm not taking them all the way, but I'm gonna at least be picking a Jesuit school in that place. And there's just a sense of loyalty, affinity that permeates the Jesuit experience. And maybe you already have it, but I do think it gets ramped up a notch when you have sort of that collegiate experience with it. So um, we can get into that at the end, but I also want to dive in to the actual education itself, the in-classroom experience and the curriculum that you will encounter at a Jesuit school. So at its foundation, I'm sure by now you know that a Jesuit education is grounded in the liberal arts tradition. And but what does that actually mean? Like, I'm sure you might be thinking, okay, I'm probably going to have to take a little bit of this, maybe a little bit of that, just a couple extra gen eds in addition to my major course. And then, like, after 4 years, I'll graduate. And maybe, because it's a Jesuit school, there'll be some theology or some religion classes sprinkled in. And that's true. Like, there will be religion and theology courses sprinkled in, but it's so much more than that. There's self-discovery and exploration and looking at things from different perspectives. So I know at JCU, when we're taking a look at our core curriculum, not only are we saying like, okay, there are a couple classes that we're going to say, yes, all John Carroll students need to take this class. We consider it foundational to our experience here, and we want all of our students to be competent in these areas. But we're also going to identify different areas of education, different themes, and have a full list of courses that will meet those that you can self-select into. You can use them to explore interests, maybe think about different majors, just passion areas. I'm kind of interested in this thing. Maybe I'll take one of those quick courses. And so it should feel like an experience where you get to take these classes, not necessarily like you have to take these classes. And throughout all of it, you'll see different Jesuit ideologies woven into them. So you might be encountering courses that are grounded in issues of social justice. Okay, what does that mean when I'm taking an environmental science class? What does that mean when I'm taking a business class? Um, it's all going to be different in exploring these different functional areas from different lenses. And same thing, okay, we want you to engage in the global community. What does that even mean? Okay, that could be taking a course in peace building, where you explore the troubles in Northern Ireland and Ireland. It could be looking at like a Middle Eastern policy class in the political science department. Um, there's a lot of different ways that you can sort of push and challenge ideas, and critical thinking, of course, is very heavy within the way we look at things, making sure that you're able to look at ideas, challenge them if necessary, consider them, push back on them, reflect on those, and ultimately be able to form your own opinion. And being able to express yourself through written or verbal communication, all of those areas you're going to be able to self-explore within the curriculum. And of course, like you might be saying, okay, well, I know what I want to be. And that's fabulous. I love that. I'm so glad that you know what you want to do. Um, there are so many ways that you can still encounter the core curriculum at all of these schools in ways that is meaningful for you, and in ways that make sense to your own educational and professional journey. So, yeah, of course, if you're interested in accounting, you have a clear set path to becoming an accountant. If you're interested in engineering, there's a clear-cut way to get there. But there's also broader focuses that you could take through like a sociology course, through a psychology course, or even We offer a major in peace, justice, and human rights, which certainly looks at things from a broad perspective and opens up a broad variety of careers for you. So there's a lot to consider and a lot of ways that you'll be able to like self-direct through that. Sorry. And one last point on that frame of mind is that we just want students um, and humans graduating from GCU to be curious, to challenge ideas, and to make an impact in the classroom and outside of the classroom. And so that's one end of things. Then looking outside of the curriculum, I'm sure on the surface, like, of course, a Jesuit school is going to have several service opportunities. To me, that is um, obviously essential to the education that you would get at a Jesuit university. But I think there are different ways that we explore it at the collegiate level and different ways that you can fit that into your life if that's what you want it to be. If service is essential to who you are as a person, but you're worried about making time for it, I mean, service learning is a huge opportunity to tie to your curriculum that you're learning in the classroom. And it could look in a variety of different ways. I mean, at GCU, a lot of our students get involved with healthcare advocacy who are on that pre-health or pre-med track. We have students who are majoring in accounting who are going into marginalized populations and helping them prepare taxes. And so it's using their talents and their knowledge that they've learned in the classroom to make an impact outside and in their community. And that's so important to what we do and the types of students that we are hoping to develop and graduate. Um, and there's so many more ways our education majors are getting involved with it, with literacy programs. And there's so many others, you know, the immersion trips that you're familiar with. And you're maybe thinking, okay, maybe I don't want that to be, you know, every single week. Maybe I'm just looking for closer to home opportunities for maybe getting involved with it in a student org. That's great. All of this is going to be challenged by choice. There are some courses that will require service, others where it's just a cherry on top of your experience through your time at college. But that's so important to the Jesuit education system. And so that's just something I encourage you to think about, how you might be able to use your time at college, how you might be able to use your time and talents post-grad to make an impact on your communities. Definitely most of the universities within that Jesuit network, they're going to say, okay, like John Carroll, we're not just a college campus. Our campus is also Cleveland. We're using Cleveland as a way to make a difference within our communities. You'll hear that from Marquette. You're going to hear that at Loyola Chicago. You're going to hear that across the different universities. The cities are our classrooms, and not just in the way of internships, but through the impact building with service, getting involved, being out with the folks that we're living alongside. So just something to keep in mind from that frame of mind. We're not just people who are passing through for 4 years and then we forget about our time there. Like it's very much a huge part of the experience. All right. And one other thing that I think can be overlooked with a Jesuit education but is so vitally important to the experience is this idea of accompaniment. And we talk about this all the time at John Carroll, so it's very top of mind for me, and something I'd like you to think about through your college search, but particularly through your college search with other Jesuit universities. I think we all do this really, really well and in several different ways. So when I say accompaniment, what I really mean is like this idea of mentorship and guidance and support, really however you want to look at it. So as we said earlier, as I said earlier, we talk a lot in Jesuit circles about walking alongside each other and being men and women who are for and with others. And that's really what I want to dive into here. So, yes, we are looking to develop that in you as a student, as a human being, but we're showing that through example. There should never feel like there's a time in your Jesuit college education where you totally feel like you're alone. Um, and so, what I mean by that is like, think about the difference it can make to have a university that is constantly talking about this idea of cura personalis, of mind, body, and spirit, and developing whole humans at the end of it. So that's definitely something that has been influenced in the grander higher education scheme. A lot of universities are going to talk about developing whole people. That's something that the Jesuits have had in mind. Like that is us influencing the grander sphere of higher education. Um, and as someone who's worked in all these different spaces, Jesuit values, mission, identity, those are always being talked about, but we're really always talking about cura personalis. That's truly at the heart of what we're doing. And so when you have a university that's constantly thinking about that and having conversations about that, it really has a larger impact on the interactions that students, faculty members, staff members, community members, that everyone is experiencing. So think about all the people that you could encounter at the collegiate level, your roommates, your friends, your peers, upperclassmen, underclassmen, faculty, professors, staff, the priests, there's got to be other people I'm leaving out, leaders, community members, the folks who work in the cafeteria, like every single person you interact with. You're walking alongside with in some way, shape, or form, and they will be accompanying you along your educational journey in big ways and meaningful ways. Like every single interaction has the possibility to be a launching point for something else. Um, but a lot of it, honestly, can come down to this feeling of being known. So when we're keeping cura personalis and being with, for, and with each other at the heart of what we do, it becomes a lot more personal, even in the classroom. When your faculty member knows who you are, when they know your strengths, your areas of growth, I don't want to call them weaknesses, but when they know your growth areas, when they know how you normally show up to class and how your spirit normally is. And if it's you're in high spirits, wonderful. If you're in low spirits, there might be an interaction there pulling you aside and seeing how things are going for you, and maybe getting to a heart of an issue before it becomes impactful on your final GPA or your personal life, whatever that might be. It might be having a student organization leader a couple years older than you who you're able to turn to for support, guidance, to bounce an idea off of, and not feel silly because reflection and discernment is so much a part of what we do in and out of the classroom that having meaningful conversations like that isn't weird. It's welcomed, and people are able to navigate them with care and compassion and empathy. Or, I lived that experience, and this is what I wish I had considered when I was in your shoes. So it's not always going to be this formal, sit down conversation. It could just be pulling aside in the hallway. Um, but it's really the value of these real human to human interactions, um, using a shared language that really elevates the full experience. And for me, that's very much the marquee of a Jesuit education. And, maybe as a freshman, you're not ready to do that. I certainly wasn't. When I started at JCU when I was 17 years old, I was like, I could barely look people in the eye at that point in mind. But it builds, it scaffolds from every interaction, year over year. You gain more leadership, you gain more experience until 4 years later, we throw around that idea, the grad at grad, but my God, like it really shines through within the Jesuit system, just how prepared our students are to encounter the real world because they've been practicing at it, they've been engaging with it for 4 years. Um, and they're ready to hit the ground running. If I wanted to be trite, I would say, or corny, I would say, you're ready to go forth and set the world on fire. But really, what I think the biggest difference maker is, yeah, you're prepared to do well with your career. Yes, you're prepared to do well in graduate or professional school or in a year of service. Like that's almost a guarantee. That's almost a distinctive promise. But what makes it a little bit more special is the preparation to be an impact maker, to be an influencer. And I don't mean that necessarily in the social media way. I mean it in like a way of being able to mentor others and guide others and continue that piece of accompaniment further on into your career. So um, that's all I have for you. I'm going to take a quick sip and wait for Jeff to join us again.
Thank you so much, Danny. That was awesome.
Thanks.
Yeah, one of the questions I had was about formation. Um, you talk about like how this kind of happens naturally when you're at
Mhm.
a Jesuit college or university. Here in high school, a lot of it's prescribed. There are mandatory service hours, mandatory services, things of that nature. Um, what is it like at the college level, for a student who, I mean, obviously we're coming from McQuaid, you end up going to a Jesuit college or university. I often hear some students share concern about, I don't want this stuff, kind of forced upon me at this point in my life. Is that a valid concern for someone going to a Jesuit college or university?
I don't know where to start with that one. Um, I think in some ways I get where they're coming from with it. Largely, so much of the experience is going to be challenged by choice. And if there are things you're hoping to avoid, then by all means you likely will be able to avoid them if you're really dead set against it. What I would say is keep yourself open to those experiences and don't base the college experience off of maybe a bad interaction or a bad, I don't want to say experience, I don't even want to say bad, but maybe an uncomfortable situation that you might have encountered um, historically throughout your years in high school and grammar school. Um, because so much of it truly, it sounds so silly, so much of it is different. Because a lot of it is just people who want to do it. They're not being forced there. And so when it comes from a place of authenticity, it often resonates a little bit more with folks. So personally, I came up through a public school system. So there's a lot that was different for me stepping into a Jesuit world when I started at John Carroll. But personally, I was like, you're never going to catch me at Mass. You're never going to see me at Mass, even though I'd been raised Catholic. And the way people speak about their experiences, and like I said, I came in with that mindset, like, I'm never going to do it.
Mhm.
Why would I? But you make friends with students and peers, and you hear about these experiences, and you're like, you know what? Gosh, that sounds so different from what I thought it might be. I'm going to go check it out for myself.
Mhm.
And I'm not going to say I was a weekly mass goer. I certainly was not. But I would go with friends and be like, this is really kind of wonderful. This is very different from what I thought it would be. And I'm glad that I opened myself up to those experiences. Similar to retreats. I had trouble making friends. When I started at John Carroll, I was shy. I just told you I couldn't look people in the eye. I had trouble making friends. And part of the way you do that is just start showing up to things. And I wish I had joined the freshman year retreat to get out there and meet new people. Um, I got involved with service just because the girls in the dorm next door to me were going to do something. I was like, I've got nothing better to do. And so that started as a launching point for me. So I would warn anyone who was hesitant about those types of things from issuing a blanket statement
Hmm.
and saying, you know, that's not going to be right for me. I definitely say keep your mind open for it. And if you try it out and you're like, yeah, I was right, I don't want to do that, then at least you've opened yourself up to it and you can say, you know, it wasn't for me, and you can speak to it knowledgeably from that frame of mind. I also kind of hear that often in the lens of like, I don't want to take a theology course
Hmm.
when I'm in college. Like I've done enough of it. I get it. Theology courses are often some of people's most favorite classes that they take, because there's so many different ways to do it. At JCU, a famous class we have is the history of Christmas. And it really, like, it's fun, but it's a very hard class. And so that kind of takes away from the fun. But it's a whole different way of thinking about theology and thinking about religion when you're looking at it sort of from that level. So were there other areas that you were thinking about that, like, oh, I don't want to engage in that. I don't want to reflect anything that I didn't hit on?
No, that was perfect. I was just curious about, somebody who might be thinking if I'm in class, are we going to say the prayer before each start of each class? Am I going to be, do I have to go to a mass as part of a curriculum of some sort? So,
Yeah.
yeah, you definitely answered that question. One thing that you said during your answer, I'm public school educated, high school and college. And, once I started here, of course, there was things that I had to do, but then I was also invited to do many things.
Hmm.
And like it really helped with my own formation as a human being more than I ever thought that I could imagine, just in ways of like just the way that people treated me here, the opportunities for community
Hmm.
service engagement, not just to do it, but just to learn about why we were doing it, why this is important, and then kind of like a call to action. Now I have a choice to make. I can kind of pretend that doesn't exist, or I can continue to address that in any way that I feel like I can, whether it be through teaching or continued service and action. So I can relate at least to a certain degree about that experience of coming into the Jesuit world after not being a part of it.
Yeah, I agree. There's this sort of comfort or comfortability with navigating difference that I think comes from it. I mean, like we say all faiths and none often at the Jesuit schools, and having dialogues across difference as it relates to religion or other different identities. Um, it really impresses me how students are able to approach those conversations with empathy,
Hmm.
intelligence, and just cool heads
Yep.
with it. And I think it translates really well into the whole lived experience for all students, and translates well to the professional arena for sure afterwards.
Yeah. And then, as you said, when you get to that professional arena, the millions of alumni that are out there that you can relate to that were helpful in your own experiences too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hmm. Well, unless you have anything else that you'd like to say, I'd just like to say thank you very much for your time and expertise yet again, and for helping our students at McQuaid think about what's next for them after they leave from here.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's always fun to yap about this kind of stuff, and I'm glad that there's a time limit so that I didn't keep going. I could have told a million stories from my own time, and stories of other friends. So I just appreciate the opportunity to speak about something that I care so much about. So thank you.
Absolutely. Well, take care and looking forward to our continued work together.
Yeah, likewise.
Thanks.